Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredibly fascinating challenge of tailoring grammar instruction for two very distinct groups, English medium, or EM, and non-English medium, or NEM students. If you've ever stood at the front of a classroom and realized that a one-size-fits-all approach to grammar is totally failing your students, well, you are in the exact right place. We're going to break down these specific, research-backed strategies on how to adapt everything from your very first diagnostic question all the way to your final assessment, completely based on who is actually sitting in front of you. Let's get right into it.
Okay, here's our agenda. We're going to walk chronologically right through the lesson life cycle. We'll start with number 1, defining our two distinct learner profiles. Then 2, preparing and presenting the grammar. 3, meaningful practice and correction. 4, integrating tech and collaboration. And finally 5, assessment and our ultimate goals.
So moving right into Section 1, two distinct learner profiles, the foundation versus the finesse. Because, before we plan a single minute of our lesson, we've got to intimately understand the core identities and the specific needs of the students in our room. And there really is a fundamental divide in our overarching focus here. Think of NEM instruction as building the foundation. These students absolutely need basic grammatical accuracy. They need functional language use to actually navigate the world. And honestly, most importantly, they need us to build their confidence way before we ever start throwing complex structures at them. On the other side of the room, EM instruction is much more like decorating the house. The foundation, it's already there. So our focus shifts entirely to stylistic flexibility, complex constructions, advanced usage, and really developing their ability to self-correct. We aren't just teaching them to speak, we're teaching them to speak and write with real sophisticated style.
All right, let's hit Section 2, preparing and presenting grammar, setting the stage. Let's look at exactly how we introduce these grammar concepts to these entirely different minds. Literally, the moment you begin preparing, your materials have to diverge. For our EM students, we're pulling authentic, complex sentences straight from newspapers, literature, and academic texts. We hit them with diagnostic questions to activate the knowledge they already have, and we keep native language, or L1 support, to an absolute minimum. But for our NEM students, throwing a newspaper at them is just going to cause immediate panic and a huge headache for you. Instead, we have to begin with familiar, everyday situations. We're using visuals, objects, and bilingual explanations. Actually, we pre-teach the grammar terminology in really simple terms, rather than expecting them to just absorb it on the fly. We're setting a safe, easily recognizable stage. And when it comes to presenting the actual grammar rule, we make a profound pedagogical flip. For EM students, we use an inductive approach. We hand them those authentic examples and basically say, hey, you find the pattern, you formulate the rule. It's a completely active discovery process. But for NEM students, an inductive approach usually just leads to massive frustration. They need a deductive approach. We start with clear, simple examples, maybe even contrasting them with their native language, and then we follow that up immediately with concise rule explanations. They need the map before they start driving, whereas EM students, they can literally draw the map themselves. Once that grammar is presented, we enter Section 3, meaningful practice and correction, managing the mistakes. This is where we shift to student practice and the inevitable but highly crucial reality of error correction. Notice the stark contrast in these exercises. For NEM learners, practice needs to be highly controlled. We rely heavily on gap filling, matching, and substitution drills to build up basic recognition and muscle memory. It's all about guided transformation. But for EM students, a simple gap fill is often just a waste of time. They need to be pushed straight into error analysis, sentence transformation, and editing. We don't just want them filling in a blank. We absolutely demand that they analytically justify exactly why a particular form is correct. Just imagine being the student asked these higher-order questions. How does changing this tense completely alter the meaning of the paragraph? Or, between these two constructions, which one is more effective for an academic audience and why? This is exactly how we push those EML learners toward deep grammatical reasoning. We aren't asking them, what is the rule? We're asking, how does this rule serve your ultimate purpose? So the main takeaway here is that NEM questioning builds a safe, sequential ladder. We start with simple recall. Then we step up to recognition. Only then do we move to application and eventually, maybe, explanation. We are heavily scaffolding every single step. EM questioning, on the other hand, jumps straight into the deep end of complex analysis. We're pushing them to evaluate and explain right out of the gate. And of course, inevitably, they are going to make mistakes. When we're correcting errors, we have two completely different psychological tasks on our hands. For NEM students, we absolutely must protect their confidence. We use selective, highly supportive correction. If they manage to successfully communicate their intended meaning, we celebrate that first before we gently address the grammar mistake. Overcorrecting here will totally destroy their confidence. But for EM students, we expect them to find their own mistakes. We encourage self-correction, peer correction, and we focus heavily on classifying and fixing recurring structural patterns rather than just swatting at one-off typos.
Okay, let's jump to Section 4, Integrating Tech and Collaboration, Expanding the Classroom. Look, modern grammar instruction relies heavily on technology and peer interaction. But just like our lesson plans, the execution of these tools has to be perfectly tailored to the audience.
Both groups are going to use AI in today's world. There is simply no avoiding it. But look at how differently we deploy it. For NEM students, AI is a supportive crutch. We're talking mobile dictionaries, text-to-speech, translation support, and simple explanations to guide their basic understanding. But for EM students, AI is more like a sparring partner. We let them use Grammarly or ChatGPT, sure, but then we require them to critically evaluate and actually justify the AI's corrections. They have to explain why the AI changed their sentence and debate whether they actually agree with the stylistic choice it made. And when they work with each other, the dynamic shifts completely. Collaborative learning for EM students really thrives on high-level interaction. Think grammar debates, error detection competitions, and collaborative editing of dense texts. It's highly analytical. This contrasts sharply with the highly structured environment needed for our NEM students, where collaboration looks much more like guided dialogues, bilingual pair activities, and safe sentence-building games. You carefully pair stronger and developing NEM learners to create a really secure zone for practice. Finally, we've reached Section 5, Assessment and Ultimate Goals, Measuring Success. The practice is done, and now we must evaluate the outcomes and reflect on our ultimate objectives for both of these tracks. At this stage, your very identity as a teacher practically has to morph, completely depending on who you're assessing. For NEM students, you are the instructor. You are the scaffold, the motivator, the ultimate confidence builder. You provide explicit support. But for EM students, you step back. You become a facilitator, a diagnostician, a language analyst. You encourage their independent discovery and critical thinking. You aren't holding their hand anymore. You're just pointing them toward the peak of the mountain. Let's trace the NEM student's journey real quick. It is a very deliberate, careful, 5-step climb. Step 1, simple recognition of a form. Step 2, moving to basic understanding. Step 3, entering a heavy phase of guided practice. Step 4, slowly pushing into application. And finally, Step 5, the ultimate summit for the NEM learner, independent grammatical use in everyday functional scenarios. Now let's compare that right next to the EM student's progression. Notice what's missing here. We bypass basic recognition entirely. We start right at rule awareness and almost immediately jump into application. From there, we push them into deep analysis of the grammar, followed by rigorous editing of their own and others' work. Their summit isn't just independent use, it's independent grammatical control. It's the ability to manipulate the language with real stylistic intent. So, here's your ultimate summary of our 2 tracks. When we assess student output, we're expecting correct sentences, guided dialogues, and short paragraphs from our NEM learners. Our objective is functional competence, deep confidence, and gradual fluency. But for our EM learners, the bar is entirely different. We demand academic paragraphs, complex written responses, and seamless self-editing. Our ultimate objective for them is pinpoint accuracy, high-level analytical ability, and total stylistic flexibility. To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this final thought to guide your next lesson plan. When you look at the faces of your students, you have a crucial choice to make about the tools you pull from your pedagogical toolbox. So, as an educator, when you walk into your classroom tomorrow, are you building the foundation or are you decorating the house? Knowing the answer makes absolutely all the difference in the world.